Good day and welcome. And as the description hopefully says, I'm in the process of making a comprehensive series on how to use Blender. Series of videos on how to use Blender for complete beginners, and particularly in the design industry. So so when I do these videos, I film them like a million times until I get just the right result. So I thought I would just do one like this off the cuff and watch it again, and then change the script, adapt it, improve it, so that I'm not doing what I'm doing right now, which is Anyway, so the first video is a basic introduction into this series, which is building a MacBook Pro. And then I'll be making two versions of the model. One which is this one, which is just a very quick version, quick and dirty. It still be a decent model, and then the second one, which will be much higher sort of quality. So as I said, in that first video, we've got as far as modeling this base, and now we've gotten onto building the QWERTY keyboard. So if we look at the keys, most of these are, well, the vast majority of these are the same. So it's just these squares. Oops, and it's not zooming in or out. Why is that? Okay, so my PureF is acting up. That's not good. Okay, so let's close PureF. Okay, and let's open it up again. PureF Pro, okay. So if we look at our keyboard again, so I've built this before, and the measurements for the keys are 16.3 wide and 16 millimeters tall. So they're not quite squares, which was quite a surprise to me. And then the spacing between them is 19 millimeters from the center to center inside, and from side to side, and then in Y it's 18.5. So that distance from the center of there to the center of there. So if we look at these keys, so the shape of most of these ones, the square ones, is the same. However, if you look at these ones here, there's a little bit of a highlight. So it looks like the numbers, or rather these ones here, the numbers and letters here all have that little highlight there. These top ones don't have that highlight. So they're obviously slightly different, the top shape. Then these ones here are just this shape, elongated. The space is just elongated. These buttons here are flatter, and we're going to assume that that fillet there is the same size as that. Then we've got this shape here is slightly different. And then of course we've got the enter key, which has got a little bit of difference, you know what I mean? And then this key, whatever that is, has the power button, maybe has a little recessed bit there. So what we're going to do, we're going to start by just building one of these, and then using an array modifier, and then doing the same thing down these, and then, well, let's just start. So let's minimize the PureF. Let's have our measurements on display. Let's go to top view. Let's turn on our reference images, which are there. We're going to adjust the opacity of that slightly because I can't see very well what's going on. So we're going to increase the opacity there. Then we're going to go into our keys collection. Make sure key is selected. Then we're going to create a cube. is our cube, and then we're just going to scale it down, move it, turn off snapping, move it to roughly there, scale it a little bit more, scale it a little bit more, and then as I said, the measurements that I had for these previously were these ones down here. So in a professional environment, you might get these measurements from the engineering department, but you would certainly, I imagine, you would get a rounded number. So if we scale that down, we can get it as close as we can, and as I say, you want to scale that down to a rounded number. So in this case, if we apply the scale, so 16.2, and I think I had, what did I have? 16.3 in X, sorry. So 16 point, oh yeah, there you go actually. So because I did it by eye, the scaling, the actual measurement I've got here is 16.1967. As I say, in reality, that would be, or in this case, 16.2, but I'm going to stick with 16.3, which is what I had there. And then height, which in this case is the Y, I've got 16, so 16 here. And then the height doesn't really matter as long as it's obviously not sticking out the bottom there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the origin to the top of the key, and then I'm going to snap that to the top of so I thought there was someone at the door. I'm going to snap that to the top of the base. And then, yeah, with the height, oops, let's try 10, 5. Okay, now let's delete the bottom face. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to create these fillets using the bevel modifiers. So we're going to grab that top edge, or those top edges there, and we're going to add a, how did I do this previously? Right, let's add 2 bevel weight modifiers to here. So generate bevel. So we're going to add, so we need to quickly apply the scale, and let's reduce that to something smaller. So we need to select those top ones there and add them to a new vertex group, and then add another bevel weight modifier. I can't remember which way around it was. One of them will be bevel weight, bevel using weight, so one of them will be using the vertex group. So let's try this way around first. So one of them is going to be a lot smaller as well, obviously. So let's try this way around. So, and the order is it important? So this will be the bevel using vertex. And then let's change this to vertex groups. And it will be that group. And let's increase the segments to 3. Let's turn that one off for a sec. Okay, vertex group. So it's doing it on the wrong edges. So let's change that around. Let's turn off the weight. Let's make these, let's make the outer ones use the bevel weight, and that will be this one, and that will be on top. Let's turn on our reference image. Let's increase, and actually we're going to use a subdivision modifier on there as well. So let's add that as well. That will be at the bottom of the stack, which is good. Now we're going to, let's see, let's change the profile to 1. Zoom in, let's turn wireframe on. Let's increase the segments to 3, and then let's make that 1. So yeah, this is the right order. So let's increase that to 2. Okay, so we're happy with the shape of it in plan, although it does look like perhaps it's peeling away a little bit too far. I would imagine that it's going to be flat to about this point. So if we increase this segments to 5 and increase that to 3, it's going to be flatter for further, which is good. So we're happy with that. The fillets on there, maybe a little bit slightly bigger. Let's go 3.25. Yeah, that's good. Okay. And now we want the bevel for this top edge here. So let's reduce that, reduce it a bit more, 0.25. And then we're just going to zoom in to one of our reference images. This one. No, I need a better image than that. This one. There you go. That's not very good either. Okay, that's the best we've got there, I think. So let's... So there's a lesson for you. Make sure you've got good reference images. Okay, let's go with this one. So if we just look at that across like that. So I would say that this one should perhaps be a little bit bigger. Let's go for 0.35. 3 segments. And I think I'm happy with that. Now, let's position that. Okay, we're good with the positioning. Let's tap it up a little bit maybe. So G and up a touch like that. And then we're going to add a array modifier on that. So array in X, turn off relative and make it by distance. Where are those measurements? So the spacing in X is going to be 19. So if we just change that to 19 in here, 19 millimeters, and then we're just going to increase the count, and then hopefully that's in the same place. Good. Right. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to duplicate those in Y by 18.5. So duplicate Y, turn off snapping, change this to minus 18.5. I think I said 19, I meant 18. And then we're going to duplicate or replicate right down to the bottom like that. Then we're going to duplicate this and across by 19, minus 19. Then we're going to delete the array modifier of that one. So now we're happy that this gap is going to be the same as those ones. And then meanwhile, we can grab these and then slide them out, get them close to there, and then make sure that this is a nice round number that we're stretching that by. So that then all of these measurements will be nicely rounded off. So this is going to be the edge, which these are all aligned to. Now let's grab this one. And what we want to do is we want to align this, or this edge to here. And the way we do that is, right, so these are 16.3 wide. So if we grab this vertex, duplicate it, and we move it in X by 16.3 divided by 2, then we know if we just separate that for a sec. So now if we align that to there, let's make sure we're aligning by active. And then we align that to that. So now we know that that edge is going to be bang on. So that's good. Okay, let's have a look at those. So then we've got another long one here. So what we can do in this one is we're gonna duplicate this. We're going to increase the array by 1. Then we're going to apply this array. Then we can delete all of those except for that one. And then we're going to extend this. I'm going to zoom right in, extend that over so that that edge is close to the reference image. I'm going to make sure that that's a nice rounded number. So 9.5. Let's try 9.4. I do prefer 9.4 because it's an even number. I'm going to stick with 9.4. Okay. Right, now let's do this one. So we're going to do the same thing as we did up there. So duplicate in X, move it along by 19 millimeters, or minus 19. Let's delete the array on this one. Isolate these two and grab these, snap them to that. Turn everything else back on. That's good. Okay. Now let's grab this one and reject the nuisance phone call in the background. And then let's, is there anything that could be aligned to? I don't think so. So let's just move this by I. Let's try and do it by a rounded number. So let's go 4.7. Let's have a look how that's looking over here. So if you do F9, it will bring back that last dialog box. So let's try 4.8. I think that's actually closer. So we're going to stick with 4.8. We're going to reduce the array by 1. And then we're going to just duplicate this in X by minus 19. We're going to delete the array modifier from there. Isolate these two. Edit mode on both of them. And then snap it to there. Bring everything else back in. And again, can that be lined up with anything? So this last key here, oh no, okay. So we're gonna have to do this one by I as well. I wonder if those two should be lined up. Nope. But those could be. So hold on, let's do this first. So let's move that along like so. And actually we could probably line this center of that up with the center of, with this gap here. So if we isolate these 3 items or objects, and then to find the center of that, what we're going to do is just extrude that over in X to there. Then we're going to add a loop cut in there, and then we're going to use that as our snapping point. So we can get rid of that and that. And now we're just going to snap that to that point. So now it's perfectly aligned with the center of those 2 keys. And let's reduce the array of that one. Oops, one too many. Then again, let's duplicate this in X by minus 19. Delete the array modifier. Isolate these 2, edit mode, grab these, snap them to that. There we go, perfectly lined up. And I believe that this one, I can just duplicate this one down here. So duplicate that in Y, And to get the perfect measurement for that, we need to go, spacing in Y is 18.5, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So minus 18.5 times 4. That's perfectly aligned. Okay, good. Let's reduce the, or do we just delete the, oh no. So reduce the array down to 3. No, actually, let's increase it to 4. Let's duplicate this one. Let's reduce the array on that one. And then this one. Actually, no, we didn't need to do that. Right, let's get rid of the array on that last one. And then we move this over by, was it 19 times 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay. Now we can probably align this edge with this edge, but we can't get to that, to the edit mode of that, because that's a modifier. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate that one. We're going to apply the array modifier on there. So this is just going to be a sacrificial one. And we're just going to grab those vertices, align them with that vertex, and then we can delete. Make sure we don't delete the wrong one, so we can hide that one, and then we can delete this one. Let's bring everything else back in. Then we need to do the spacebar so that it's aligned perfectly with that one. So actually we needn't have deleted that. So let's just duplicate this in Y by minus 18.5. Apply the array modifier on there, and then we can delete that one. And where's the spacebar go? Up until, it's up to here, isn't it? So I'm going to just move that out of the way, delete these, and I'm just going to snap this to that vertex. There, make sure it's correct. So 141.15. Hold on, it's this one, isn't it? So this number here should be the same as I toggle between these two. So that's good. And grab that one, delete. And what we're going to do, we're going to delete those. I'm going to grab the spacebar. I'm going to put the origin to center of mass, so it will put the origin of the spacebar to the center of it, and then we will put the cursor to selected. Now I'm going to select these, and I'm going to duplicate them. I'm going to go, actually before I do that, I'm going to just make sure that our pivot point is at 3D cursor, and now I'm going to go scale x minus 1 to bring me over onto this side. Now let's apply this array modifier on there, and we can delete these two keys, which we don't need. Or actually, we could probably keep that one, separate that from there. Let's move the 3D cursor, the pivot point to those, and let's move those down. Zoom in a bit, and then let's round that off to 18.2, or sorry, 8.2. Let's try 8.4. No, let's try 8.3. 8.2 I think was good. Okay, that's good. And so the pivot point is there, which is actually, looks like it's in the center there, so we can add a mirror modifier to that one. And then let's duplicate that in X, X, change that to 19, get rid of the mirror modifier on, actually we can keep that mirror modifier. I wonder if we can do something clever here. Let's isolate that. Let's move the origin to center of mass. Let's just turn off these modifiers, and then let's move the origin point and snap it to the top there. And then let's turn on these modifiers again, and let's change the mirror modifier. So that's mirroring about Y. And what's it doing here then? Oh, so we put that above the subdivision modifier. And we want to change these edges. Actually, we can just put a crease on those, couldn't we? Nope. If we turn off the bevel weight modifier on those, we get something closer to what we're looking for. We can come back to that. Now let's do these buttons up here, shall we? Or keys. So let's do the easy one first, which is that one. So we're gonna, this is the second occasion that I could have used that one that I've deleted. So let's duplicate that. Let's increase the array by 1. Then let's apply that array modifier. Then let's delete all of these. Let's select, actually let's select that one and that one. Edit mode, grab these, snap those to there. So that's those. Let's see how we're looking so far. So far, so good. Okay. Add a little perspective in our life to see how we're looking. It's looking pretty good, if I say so myself. And then for the enter key, enter, we'll have to build these manually. So let's duplicate this and apply the array modifier. Then let's delete all of these. And then on this one, let's reduce the array to 12. Then here, let's have a look. So this bevel, so the outer bevel has 5 segments, which is not what I wanted to hear. So what we can do, right, let's reduce the opacity of that top viewport. Sorry, of the top reference image. And then let's go to that space key and right, so we'll probably keep this bevel, but with that top one, let's delete it and get rid of the bevel weights on those. And let's see, if we add a bevel to there, bevel, let's increase that to 1. And okay, unfortunately, this is where I'll have to pause and come back to you because there is someone at the door. So what we would have learned from the previous video is if I select that one and I do pivot point to active element, we can scale these and we can adjust those and making sure that we are perfectly balanced on that corner. So we can select all of those, make sure that's the last one selected. Scale, we do Shift Z, and if we do scale, it will make sure that it does not scale it in any other direction other than X and Y. So that's good. What we're going to do next, I think for simplicity, we're just going to delete those vertices on the bottom. Then actually I think we got a bit ahead of ourselves there. So let's turn on, let's turn auto merge on. Let's slide those over. So we're going to get rid of those. And then let's add a loop cut here. Let's slide it over so that it's aligned with this edge of the key. And as before, we're going to try and, no, we're not. Okay, so let's grab this edge. Let's extrude it in Y. Let's isolate these. Let's temporarily turn these off. Oops. And then we're just gonna align that with the bottom of that, like so. Bring everything else back in. Okay, and okay, let's increase the opacity of that so we can see the shape a little bit better. And let's see, let's add a loop cut up here. And let's move those along a little bit. Let's add a loop cut in here. Let's make sure that they're all straight. So scale X0. Let's add a loop cut in here. So I'm just doing these by eye to start with. So, and then once we've got a decent shape that we're kind of happy with, then we're just going to make them all the same. So this fillet size is a result of these vertices here. However, this one also has a factor on how it's led into it. So if, for example, you have, okay, I'm going to have to write a script for what I'm trying to say there. So I'm just adding in more and more loop cuts until I get a shape closer to what I'm looking for. Obviously in the corner here, we've got an outie and an innie. So if I add, so basically I need another loop cut here, but if I add a loop cut here, it's obviously going to affect what's going on. Oops, I had auto merge on there. So if I add another loop cut in here, it's going to have an effect on that. So now let's align those in X. Let's align these in X. Let's move these up a touch. So this one I'm not happy with. These, and let's compare them with a previous one there. So this one here is pretty close to this one, I'd say. If we isolate those, let's turn off the grid for a sec. And actually let's turn off the, not this one, not this one. Right, so as I was saying, I'm happy with this one, but am I happy with this inner one here? I think the fact that I'm asking myself if I'm happy with it means that I'm not happy with it. So if we just move those along a little bit and add another loop cut in here. It's behaving a little bit strange when I move that along. Why is this? Because of the, I wonder if it's because of that one. Okay. So that bevel modifier there was having an effect on the subdivision modifier there, which, hold on, so let's get rid of that one again. Auto merge on, slide that over like that. And then if we move these, move those down. Yeah, so we do need another loop cut here. Move it out a little bit like, oops, turn off auto merge. Loop cut here. I grab those, move those out a touch like so. Make sure that these are lined up in X. How is that looking? So that is looks like it's peaking a little bit too much there. So I think we might need to push that one in like that by 95 degrees. But if I do that, it means we're gonna have to add more geometry up here. So let's, and that would mean doing that everywhere. So if I just slide those down, hold on. So if I slide them up, slide these across. So this one is always going to be peaking a little bit here. If you look at the reference image underneath, so I'm just going to move the keys collection up in, so it's the second one down, so I can toggle it on and off. But yeah, you can see clearly here that with this amount of, or this configuration with a corner vertex there, it's always going to be peaking there, because if I grab these and move them out, it's always going to be peaking here. So what I need to do is, let's move this. Actually no, let's first of all duplicate that vertex, then hide it, then move that one up and across, and make sure it's the same distance. So in this case, let's go 0.2 up and 0.2 across. Let's bring in that hidden vertex. And now let's grab all of these, make sure that's the last one selected, make sure that pivot point is active element. Then let's scale these down. And then let's grab all of these, scale those in Y. And then let's grab these, scale those in X. Let's add another loop cut here. And we want to make sure that this distance is the same as this distance. So if we go to edge length, that is 0.82. 0.82, but I do wonder if we round it off. So if this go 0.8, then grab this one, snap it to there, move it up 0.8 as well. And then let's have a look at that corner there. Still not happy with that. Let's grab these, that one last, and let's turn on wireframe so we can see it more clearly. And then let's go scale. How's that looking? Is that better? I think that's a little bit better. And then now this one looks like it might want to go off like that a little bit. And then let's grab these again. Scale. Okay, that's good. I'm happy with that. And let's see over here. So now I've got to make sure that this one, which is 2.24, is the same distance here. So if we slide those up and move those down by minus 2.24, are we happy with that? So it's leading off a little bit too far there, so we need another edge loop there. So let's grab that. So 6.662. Minus 0.662. That's better. But actually, what I would like to do is move these a little bit closer to that one. And then is that going to have a knock-on effect on here? Yes, it is. Okay, so we're going to have to add another loop cut here. And another one here. And then we're going to put a guide vertex here. And then we're going to use that to scale that down. Actually, before we do that, let's duplicate this, hide it, and then let's scale this about, scale that to that point, so it moves it in 95 degrees. Then we can get rid of that one, and then let's see how that looks. So I think we want to move these outboard a touch. And are we happy there? So that looks like it's maybe peaking a little bit there. So let's grab that one, scale it out. Let's see how that's looking. So this looks like it's starting to lead a bit too far down. So if we grab these, and then that one last, scale, and then let's grab that one and then scale that in that direction. And move these up a little bit like that. Let's isolate those. How does that look? Not happy with that. Let's grab those, scale those inboard like this, and bring in the reference image. Let's grab that, scale that out, and scale these in a bit. That one there still doesn't feel right, so let's bring these in, and then that one out. Of course, what I really want to do is I want to move that one along, but I'm trying to keep this file light. So by adding more and more edge loops there, it's just going to make it heavier and heavier. Alright, let's just try this over on this side and see how that looks. So let's grab, what was that? Oh, we've lost the lost symmetry across there, have we? Okay. What was that? That was 0.995, so let's round that off to 1. And then this one to 1 as well. So that's going to be 1. Actually, let's grab these, duplicate them, rotate those 90 degrees. I snap that to there, and then let's isolate this stuff. So snap that to there, that to there, that to there, that to there. Let's add another loop cut down here. And let's have a look and see how that corner looks. That corner does not look good. So it's starting to peel away a bit too far out. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab these, that one last, scale, and then grab that one, then that one, and scale that way. And I think we need to grab, oops, actually, let's grab these, hide those. We can delete those ones which are our guides, and then let's turn off the edge lengths. Let's grab those, scale those in, and then let's grab these and scale those in. See how that's looking. So it looks like it's peaking just a little bit there, and it's peeling away here a little bit as well. So grab that one, push it away from there, and then grab these, select that one, and then slide those along. And that I am quite happy with. So let's see if we can now copy this one back over to this corner down here. Let's isolate that. Let's grab these, duplicate, rotate 90, minus 90. Let's snap those to there. And let's snap that to there, that to there, that to there, that to there, and then that one to there. Let's get rid of the guides, which we want to keep those guides actually. We want to keep that one as well for now. And let's have a look. So these corners, I'm happy with these corners now actually. This one could be a little bit smaller, I think, a little bit smaller, but there's not much in it, so I'm going to leave it. If you're offended, please let me know and I will fix it. However, I'm happy with it. So all we've got to do now is duplicate those and copy them to here, here, and here. So we're going to go copy, rotate, so we can use that one up there. Copy, rotate, use that one down there. Copy, rotate, minus 90, whoops, rotate 90. So let's move that to there and that to there. Let's add a loop cut here. Then let's snap that point to there, that point to there, that one to there, that one goes there. Let's add another 2 loop cuts there. Snap that to there, this one to here, that one to there, that one to there, that one goes there, that one goes there, and then let's do this one, snap that to there, snap, snap, and that one and that one. Okay, good. So I'm feeling quite confident in that I can delete all the guides now actually, so I'm going to delete those and I'm just going to align these all up. So we're going to go scale scale X0 on those, scale X0, make sure that we're pivoting on active element, scale Y0 on that one, scale Y0, and to be honest, all this stuff is unnecessarily because all of these are, well, they should be on a plane. So if I grab all of those and then go scale Z0, everything is on a plane. Oops, what's going on up here? Why does that look wrong? Oh, I didn't do the middle one. I got too confident too soon and I've hooked it up. Actually, hold on. Am I going to be? Is that going to be happening? No, it's just that one, isn't it? Okay, so we need to move that one, snap it to there, and then snap that to there. And what was I saying? Yeah. So because these are all on a plane, if I just duplicate that to illustrate what I mean, these can quite literally be doing anything, and because they're on a plane it doesn't matter. However, you don't want that because it doesn't look nice, so I'm just aligning these so that they look nice basically. Scale Y0, scale, scale Y0, and let's see over here, let's align those with that one, let's align those with that, let's align these with that one. Those should be in a straight line, as should these, and scale those and align those to that, align those to that, scale, align, and that one to there. So we've got nice vertex, well, in terms of distribution, as I say, because it's all on a plane, it doesn't really matter where they are. The density is obviously a little bit messed up, but for the purpose of what we're doing, and in fact, if you're going to be exporting this to Alias, this is the least amount of density. What you could also do is you could do a little bit of reduction as well, actually. So let's have a look at doing that, shall we? We could for it to be lighter, and as I said, because it's on the plane, we can do stuff like this. Oops. Oh, it's snapping. So let's change the threshold of the snap to 0.1, and let's see. Those will go there. Again, as I said, we're going to make some triangles, but for the purpose of this, it doesn't matter. But probably wouldn't do this, to be honest. But stuff like that, all things go really in Alias, if that's what you're working with. Anyway, let's grab these. Let's grab the outer edge of those. Let's extrude those in Z. Snap it to the bottom of this, which is not letting me snap. But I think it was a rounded number anyway, so let's go 9.5. Then let's turn this bevel weight, this bevel modifier back on. And so we need to add, let's go to the vertex group. Let's delete everything from in there. And then we need to create a new vertex group, which will be the outer perimeter there. And then we create, or assign to a new group. And then this modifier here, which we created earlier, will be assigned to group, called group. And of course, by default, when you create a new group, a vertex group, it's called group. So it's automatically applied to that top edge. Now let's bring everything else back in. What's happened there? Let's bring everything else back in. Where's our base? There it is. And that is how you would build the keys on your QWERTY keyboard. Thank you very much for watching. And as I said, this is part of a comprehensive beginner's guide to Blender, specifically for the design industry. Thank you thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to